All right. I think everything's working now. Yeah. Okay. We're live. I always have to make sure. I never can tell for sure, but yeah, we are live. So this is well, you guys know the process by now. We'll get the disclaimers out of the way, then we'll jump into it. It's a weekly live broadcast, pretty much every Thursday evening. This is where I am, 7 o'clock Central. If you've got questions you need answered, if you just want to sit around and chat, you want to talk about whatever you want to talk about, I don't really care. We'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. I don't have topics planned out. I let the chat drive kind of how the broadcast goes. Pretty much just try to respond to every live chat that comes in during the broadcast itself. Nothing's off limits really. The only requirements I say is be polite, be family friendly. Don't start cussing anybody. Don't start calling anybody names. Don't be hateful with anybody or any of those kinds of things. We can have differences of opinions. We can talk politics or religion. I don't care. Just be respectful about it. That's all I ask. Be nice. And we can have differences of opinions and still be friends. That's what I always say. So let's jump into it. We got a couple of people here already. Andy Rabbit, you've been here for a little while. Says hello. Hello to you. Good to see you. And Verna says, hey, Chris, third like. Well, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Good to see you, too. And warmer days here again, huh? Yeah, well, it's summertime. I mean, it's funny. I watch the news, and they go on like, oh, we're under a heat wave right now. It's going to be 100 degrees in Texas. Well, it's almost August. It's always 100 degrees in Texas in August. I mean, it's normal. It's not that crazy. It's not that out of the normal. In fact, it's actually been a little bit of a cooler summer than what we normally have. Anyway, is that Freight Hauler? Is that what Freight Hauler 561? I think it is. Says hello all. Hello to you too. Good to see you. Cindy Raps here. Hello to you. She says hello to everyone. Joy Guthrie from Western Oregon. Good to see you too. Jimbo Slice says, what's up, Chris? Well, not much. Hopefully you're doing well. Thanks for joining us tonight. Andy Rabbit wants to know how everyone is doing. Well, I'm doing pretty well. Honestly, it could be a lot worse, that's for sure. Andy Pearson says, good evening, y'all. Well, good evening to you too. Thanks for joining. Kieran C, I think it is, says, good morning from Australia. Lockdown day for my quail eggs. First time having quail. Well, good luck with your hatch. Hopefully, you say good morning too. Yeah, it's evening here, but morning there. But anyway, good luck with your hatch. Hopefully you have a great hatch. I'm sure you will. And Naomi from Arizona. Good to see you. Buck Reynolds from Oklahoma. Diane Bohm, I think it is. Says from Ames, New England. Is that it? It's my first visit. Wait, my first visit? So I don't know if that means it's your first time being on the live broadcast. If so, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Or if that means it's your first time to Ames. Is that New England? I think NE is New England, I believe. Either way, thank you for joining tonight. We're glad to have you here. David Lister says, smash that like button. Thank you. I appreciate that. Andy Rabbit says, I think my little giant incubator just messed up on me. Uh-oh. What makes you think that? What's it doing? Freight Hauler 561 says, first live. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining. We appreciate it. We'll get through all the hellos here in a minute and hopefully get into some other stuff for you. But if you have some questions or something you want to discuss or talk about, just throw it out there. We'll get to it. CF Deckham says, hey, had my first quail hatch ever yesterday. Have some incubator experimenting to do. Hatched 12 out of 27 of my own eggs. Yeah, I mean, not a great hatch rate, but still you got 12 eggs to hatch. So congratulations on that. The first things I would check would be your incubator temperature. You probably already know this because you've probably heard me talk about it before, but you know, that's the most important thing when it comes to incubating is the temperature, a consistent temperature, and the right temperature. So, you know, incubators in general are just notorious for being off just a little bit. So get a couple of thermometers that are calibrated, throw them in your incubator and run it. And I would say get at least two, make sure they're calibrated and accurate, throw them in your incubator, run it for a little while, and see if they read the same thing as what your incubator says the temperature actually is. Chances are it's off just a little bit. Like it may be set to 99, but it's only running 98. You know, so you may have to bump it up a degree to get it to actually 99.1 degrees or whatever. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. But that's probably what's going to help you out the most. That's the biggest impact on whether your eggs hatch or not would be the temperature. Verna saying hello to a bunch of people. Tony from Toronto, good to see you. Bev Smith says, hey, all, stormy night in Tampa. Yeah, we haven't actually had much rain for the past week, which is kind of surprising. We're due for a little bit of rain tomorrow, though, so that means I'll probably have to mow the yard again this weekend. Andy Rabbit says, I'm going to have to fire up the other incubator. I don't really want to hatch in it, but I will have to, it looks like. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks when your incubator goes out on you. I'm not sure what's happening. One thing I will say is that Little Giant, the company that makes them, Miller Manufacturing, fantastic customer service. So if it's a messed up part, they'll replace it for you. But hopefully that's not the case. Says the temps went up to 118 degrees. Hell yeah, that sounds like a thermostat going out, the thermostat going out on it, which I've had happen on my Little Giant, like twice, I think, in the like the 10 plus years that I've used it. And like I said, call them up, let them know what's going on, and they'll send you a brand new part for it, and you can just replace it, swap it out. Not in time for this hatch, of course, but they will send you a brand new one, so you don't have to scrap the whole incubator. They won't send you a brand new whole incubator. They'll send you the thermostat to swap out. Jimbo Slice says, what price are you charging for rabbits? 4-H has been buying all my litters lately. For my silver fox pedigrees, I charge $30. It's just whatever the market will bear. I've been able to sell them for about $30, and pretty much every single rabbit I've produced, for the most part, for the last year and a half, I've been able to sell for $30 because for $30 it's worth selling it versus eating it. Now I've got those Tamuks. They're not pedigree, but they are Tamuk. So I don't know what that price is going to be on them yet. I'll probably put them out there for around 30 to 40 and see if they sell. And if they don't, then we'll go from there. Verna says our real fill temp is 102 now. Yeah, that sounds about like August. I know we're not quite there, but we're almost to August. It's probably about the same here, honestly. It's pretty hot out. It was hot this morning at 4:30 this morning. The sun's not even up, and it was already muggy and hot. But that's just, like I said, that's normal this time of year. Bev Smith says the rain cooled us down. Whew. Yeah, it's nice to have a little rain, isn't it? Jujutsu Sorcerer, there we go, says, have you ever taken care of fish? I mean, I think when I was a kid, we had some goldfish or something, but no, I've never really, I'm not a fish expert. I'm not an expert on taking care of fish. I mean, I do know how to catch fish, but that's a different thing altogether. But I'm not an expert on taking care of fish. I mean, you can ask a question. Somebody in here might be able to answer it. I just probably won't, but I might. Who knows? Andy Rabbit says it was about 4 o'clock when I last looked at it. I was putting eggs into lockdown, so the top was off of it for the candle time. Well, it could be. I mean, if you set the incubator lid down like on a surface or something, I mean, it could. Who knows? It could be because it was just working hard to catch up. It may just be a fluke kind of thing. Hopefully, it is anyway. Let's see. Rainier Quamata, I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. I probably got it wrong. Says, hi, how y'all rednecks doing? I'm doing pretty good. Hopefully you are too. CF Deckham says, is temp more important or humidity in incubator? Temp for sure. Temperature is way more important than the humidity. Now, with that being said, there are times, I mean, if you have extremes in humidity, that can affect your hatch rate quite a bit. When I say extremes, I mean like incredibly low humidity, like, in the 15% range, something like that. Or I don't know, maybe even 20% humidity might be a little bit too low, and that might affect it a little bit. But incredibly high humidity, if you get over like 80, 85%, up towards 90% humidity, well, then you have to worry about it drowning the chicks and the eggs and that kind of stuff. But other than that, humidity is not as big of a deal. You really want to shoot for somewhere between about 50 to 60%. I mean, that's the ideal, but again, it's not as important during the first part of incubation. It is a little bit more important whenever it comes into lockdown. You really want to bump it up to about 75%, 70%, somewhere right around in there if you can. That does help the eggs hatch out, break out of the eggshell. The chicks break out, not the eggs, out of the eggshell. So that can help too. But for the most part, humidity, especially here where we're at in the summertime, we usually have about 70% humidity anyway. I typically dry hatch, and I might add a little bit of water during incubation. But other than that, I just dry hatch during the summer for the most part. Don't really worry about the humidity too much. Now, if you live in a desert environment, it may be a different story, but still, don't stress about it nearly as much as you do about temperature. Temperature is more important. Andy Rabbit's saying the same thing. Temperature is more important. Freight Hauler says, my hens are 9.5 weeks old and they started laying eggs 2 weeks ago. I was thinking about taking the next 24 eggs that I get and trying to hatch them. Yeah, why not? That sounds like, I mean, you should be getting fertile eggs at this point. If you're wondering about it, I mean, just do a fertility check. Grab, I don't know how many hens you have right now, but you could take, the next day's worth of eggs and just crack them, dump them in a bowl, and look for that little white dot on the yolk. If there's a faint bullseye ring around it, just a faint kind of darker ring, it's not going to be super bright, super obvious. You're going to have to kind of look for it. But if there is a little ring around that little white spot on the yolk, then it's a fertile egg. So if you've got, 90% or more of your eggs are fertile, then heck yeah, go for it and hatch. Or just throw them in there and see what happens, because what's the worst that can happen? You just get a poor hatch. Zara says, peeled 130 Coturnix eggs. Make sure you stir constantly, as I now know well. Yeah, stirring them while you're boiling them. Yeah, that does make a big difference with making sure that the yolks don't stick to one side, that they stay centered in the egg a little bit more. 130 though, that's a lot to peel in one time. Hopefully you have an egg peeler and you didn't do that all by hand. But Andy Rabbit says, I do have the GQF, but I don't like hatching in it. Only want to do setting. Yeah, why would you not want to hatch in? I forgot you won that GQF, didn't you, at QuailCon, I think a year or two ago. I don't know, why would you not like hatching in it? Maybe because, I mean, it's awful big, I guess, so you're probably not hatching out that many. Joyce says, I won some eggs from Gopher Ridge on Coturnix Corner Live. My incubator was doing fine. Spiked a temp to 102. Out of 30 eggs, 4 hatched and only 2 survived. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. 102 is not that high. It shouldn't really have really impact. I mean, unless it was there for a long period of time, it shouldn't have impacted you said it spiked. So I'm guessing it was just a temporary spike. That shouldn't have been that big of an impact on your hatch rate. If it stayed that way for a prolonged period of time, then yeah, that can affect it quite a bit. David Lister says, what age do you sell your rabbits at? I don't sell prior to about 8 weeks old. I think legally you're not supposed to sell before 6 weeks old, because that's really about the time you wean them. I usually give them about a week or two after that, get them weaned, and then offer them up for sale. So usually right around 8 weeks. Andy Rabbit wants to know from Joy, how long was your temp that high? There's Joe Sandy. Says, hey, everybody, Sandy here from Southeast Michigan. We're in the middle of a severe thunderstorm right now. Well, hopefully it's not too bad. I mean, you say a severe thunderstorm. Stay safe. Diane says, is there any way to get an automatic humidity unit for a Hovabator incubator? I can't get it to regulate. I don't know. You'd have to look. I honestly don't know depends on what model you have. I know there are some aftermarket automatic humidity regulators. How well they work, I don't know. I don't know much about them. I wouldn't stress too much about that, honestly. Like I said, humidity is not nearly as important as temperature. When you say you can't get it to regulate, it's pretty common. When you put water in, you're going to see the humidity spike, and then it will kind of drop back down. One thing to remember is humidity is really more dictated by surface area of the water than it is by volume of the water. So in other words, like I got a soda can here that holds quite a bit of volume, but it's only got that much surface area. So it's not going to produce as much humidity in the incubator as a tray like this long that's that deep. Even though there's way more liquid in here, it's the surface area that really kind of impacts your humidity levels that more than anything. But again, I don't know that I'd stress about it too much, honestly. I don't really monitor my humidity that close, and I get pretty good hatch rates. But I don't know. You'd have to do a little research. I don't really know. Somebody else might be able to answer if there is an automatic humidity unit in here that may be able to tell you about it. We got Brian Allen from Alabama. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Let's see. Andy Rabbit says, my eggs are from HP2, 90 eggs, a great lockdown rate too. Well, good luck. Hopefully you have a good hatch. Hey, look, Freezer's here. Yusef. Good to see you, man. I got a gnat flying around here again. Put out some. It's probably a fruit fly. Um, we have a little bit of a problem with fruit flies. We put out some little fruit fly traps, and it kind of helped, but not significantly yet. Anyway, Yusuf's here. Says, hey, everybody. Happy to be here again. Good to see you, man. We haven't seen you in a while. Let's see. Got a couple people saying hello to Yusuf. Joe says, hey, from Toil, I think it is, Texas. If you put ice jug in a 5-gallon bucket, flow waters. What? Okay, hang on. Hi, from Toil, Texas. If you put ice jug in a 5-gallon bucket, flow waters for quail and water to keep water cool. What? That was a hard sentence. That was like a run-on kind of no punctuation, kind of hard for me to make out. I'm betting you're typing on your phone probably, which is always difficult for me. I'm not making fun of you. It was just difficult. I think what you're saying is put an ice jug, like a jug of, or like a block of ice or something like that in the bucket of water that, feeds the watering to your quail to keep it cool. I don't know if you're asking a question or just giving a tip there, but yeah, you could definitely do that. Let's see. Karen C says, got any tips on candling quail eggs? Yeah, quail eggs are a little tough to candle. More than anything, though, I usually don't candle at all. And then sometimes when I do, it's just a lockdown. I don't bother candling before that. And really just what I look for is just, do they light up like a light bulb and just glow? Or are they kind of dark? If they're pretty dark, then assume they're good, throw them in there. If they light up like a light bulb, then throw them out. Get a bright flashlight in a dark room, block out as much light as you can, just put the egg on there. And like I said, if it glows, it's a bad egg or it's not going to hatch and you can throw it out. Jojo says, I got 3 thermometers in my incubator right now, 3 dial and a Govee. What do you think about dry hatching in a little giant forced air and egg turner? It depends a little bit on your environment, probably. I dry hatch. I don't use my little giant much anymore because I got a newer one, but a newer incubator, the Brincy 3. I can't remember which model it is. But anyway, so I've been using that and getting good hatch rates out of it. But I got great hatch rates out of my little giant. I used it for over 10 years, and I dry hatched in it all the time during the summer. Pretty regularly, actually. I very seldom add much water into it, except for during lockdown. When I go into lockdown, I usually fill up 2 of the trays. But I'm in Southwest Missouri. Summertime, we have pretty high humidity, in the 60 to 70% range anyway. So, if you're in a more dry, arid environment, you may have to kind of add a little bit of water, get some humidity in there a little bit more than I do. Mike B says, I hope everyone is having a great week. I have 30 eggs on order from my shire and looking forward to adding to my flock. Well, congratulations on the new eggs coming. Hopefully you have a good hatch with those. And yeah, my week's not too bad right now. It's going pretty good. Rabbit Homesteading's here. Says hey to Chris, Verna, Andy, and everybody. Hello to you too. Unemployable says, I don't recall you growing fodder. Do you know anything about Azolla? I've been seeing it's the new big thing. I've seen a few videos on it. I'm not real familiar with it. No, I don't grow fodder for my animals. I kind of know. I know how you can do it. It's not that hard. I just don't bother with it. It's just one extra step, one extra thing I'd have to do, and I just don't mess with it. But no, I don't know anything about it really, other than it's kind of like duckweed, I think. Grows in water, right? Yeah, it's not. I don't know that much about it, so I can't really give you any details. Jujutsu Sorcerer says, where exactly can you buy quail? I've never seen anyone in my local pet shops I know. Okay, yeah, you're probably not going to see them in your local pet shops. They're more like chickens. They're more like a farm animal kind of thing. Check Craigslist for your area. A lot of people will sell their birds on Craigslist. You can't really sell birds on Facebook Marketplace because they don't allow live animal sales. You might be able to find like a farm group or poultry group or something like that in your local area where they'll advertise them. They'll post and say, oh, look, a bunch of quail up for discussion, and you can kind of reach out to them private message and then maybe work something out. But generally, you're going to be looking at either Craigslist or something to find people, or you order eggs in from somewhere and hatch them out yourself. That's the way that most people do that. Caesar's here says, "Hey Chris and everyone. Hey Chris, I saw your video on the pasta and quail. I'm making it. I'm going to make it this weekend. Well, good. Hope it turns out. The only thing, like I said, I think I would do differently is cut back on the amount of pasta I put in there. It was a little too much. The sauce, so to speak, didn't really go as far as I wanted it to on that. So, yeah, that's the only thing I would say. But other than, it was pretty good." Joe Sandy says, "I was hoping some black soldier fly larvae would show up in my quail poop. None yet, so I actually ordered some. I will be here tomorrow. Jealous that you guys show up from the wild." Yeah, yeah, they're fantastic. Hopefully yours do well when you get them in. I've never ordered any, but sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, they just show up in mine, and they're out there working hard right now. Composting down all the quail manure and anything else that falls in there. Yusuf says, "This lady just wasted about an hour or two of my time for 3 pullets that she ended up not wanting to pick up. So frustrating. I will start putting serious buyers only and advise all of you to do so." Yeah, that is frustrating for sure. That's just kind of the joys of working with the general public and trying to sell things, is people back out all the time and waste your time. Sorry that happened, man, but hang in there. Let's see. Jesse says to Mike B, "This coming Tuesday will be 4 weeks since I ordered quail breeder sets and haven't received yet." We're ordered from where? The actual birds, not eggs, right? You're talking about birds? Andy Rabbit says, "Yeah, I won the GQF. It's big and so deep it's hard to clean and can't reach to the back." Well, if you want to get rid of it, let me know. You can drop it off at my house if you want to. I'll give it a try. I'm just kidding. Hang on to that thing. You'll probably enjoy it later. Joe Sandy says, "Then I looked on maps, and apparently they are not in Michigan, according to all I saw. Anybody in Michigan that has them naturally?" Oh, okay. So your black soldier flies they don't natively, they're not native to Michigan, is what you're saying, basically, black soldier flies. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there. Andy Rabbit says it's the setting GQF and they don't have a hatching tray. Oh, interesting. Abbott's Guns and Hobbies says, "Good evening to everyone." Good evening to you too. Verna says, "It's to Sandy, it's more of a southern thing to grow black soldier fly naturally." All right, Mike B says, "My daughter is 16. This week I had a teenage boy she likes come to the house, look me in the eye, shake my hand, and ask my permission to take her out after we talked a while. Manners aren't dead after all." Yeah, no kidding. That's pretty impressive. Most kids I know can't hardly get them to leave the house, period. Much less actually go meet somebody, look them in the eye, shake their hands, like you said. Andy Rabbit says, "I hope I don't lose these eggs." I hope you don't either. That would be incredibly frustrating. It's happened to me before. I've had a whole hatch. Of course, they were my own eggs. I didn't order them in from anywhere. Oh, sorry, my nose is itching like crazy. I think that my grandma used to say that means you're going to get company. I don't know what's going on. Probably that bug flew up my nose or something. All right. Joe Sandy says, "Did anybody else lose the live feed?" Hopefully not. Verna says, "No, possibly your storm, Sandy." Hopefully that's not it. Joe Sandy says, "You can see the chat, but no video. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I don't know if you're back in." I guess everybody else is working out. Anyway, let's see. Fred Holler says, "When your chicks first start laying eggs, do you eat the first ones or do you wait a few?" No, I don't. I go ahead and eat them. I don't care. Usually the very first eggs that are laid, though, there's a lot of breakage in the eggs, like little bitty tiny eggs. I don't bother with those. Great big double yolk eggs, which are fine. I do eat those. But you get a lot of eggs that like no shell on them, that kind of thing, for the first like couple of days when they first start laying. But yeah, I go ahead and just throw them in with the other eggs and eat them. Let's see. Jesse says close out and come back in. Lots of people responding to that. Bev Smith says, I bought one of those electric fly swatters. Just love zapping those little gnats and house flies and get in the house. Yeah, we've got one of those. What's it called? Bug assault, the shotgun looking thing that shoots salt out. It's a lot of fun, actually. I wouldn't mind having the pistol version of it, but they're kind of expensive. I can't quite justify that. Abbott's Guns and Hobbies says, had a great hatch last week. 14 eggs in the incubator, day 18, and 19 all hatched. Well, awesome. Congratulations. Okay, Joe Sandy's back. Good. Let's see. Maureen Veal says, I'm getting set up to raise rabbits. I'm thinking of starting with New Zealand or California, even a mix of the two. Any tips are welcome. Well, if you got, that's a good thing to start with. New Zealand's and California's are both fantastic meat rabbits, meat rabbit breeds, I should say. Hang on just one second. I got to check something real quick. But, as far as tips go, that's what I thought. There we go. Sorry, I had to change a setting on something. Where was I going with that? Okay, as far as tips go, I got a ton of videos. It's hard for me to give tips just wide open. But, if you have specific questions or something you're curious about, ask away. I'll be happy to answer them for you. Let's see. Verna's got one. It looks like she says, spend lots of times with your breeders, handling them often makes things easier. That's probably a good tip. That's one I don't really follow too well. And it is always a little bit, the bucks are usually pretty easy to handle. It's the does that can be a little bit tricky sometimes. And not that they're aggressive or anything. Occasionally you'll get an aggressive one, but not very often. But they're just skittish. And when they're skittish, it's hard to pick them up. You get scratched up. So you might invest in some long sleeves of some kind when you handle them, because they do tend to kind of just a panicky, like, oh, what's going on here? And they kick their feet and they'll scratch you up pretty good. I don't think I have any open wounds or scars right now, but usually they'll get my arms pretty good. So I actually bought some from Harbor Freight welder sleeves. They're just a sleeve that goes on. You can just pull them over your arm. So those work out pretty well. You don't have to put on a big heavy jacket or something like that to go out and handle them in the heat. David Lister says, I believe that GQF offers an automatic humidity tray for some of their incubators, but I do not have one. They might. Yusuf says, wow, I just found a lady selling a GQF Sportman for $200. Well, that's a pretty good price on one. That must be a local thing, so good luck with that. Hopefully, I don't know if you're in the market for it or not, but that's not a bad deal. Zora says 120 Coturnix eggs on lockdown this afternoon and another 110 going on lockdown in 5 days. Please wish me a poor hatch rate. A poor hatch rate, huh? Got in over your head, did you? Well, good luck on a poor hatch rate, I guess. Jesse says, My Shire Farms sells quail breeder sets, is what you're saying. Gotcha. Yeah, that autocorrect on the phones can be a pain, huh? Maureen says, Taverna, thank you. You suggest getting them young? I was thinking the younger, the better. Well, there's good and bad with that. It depends on when you're going to get them. You got to realize that really you got to wait till they're about 6 months old and at least 80% of what their adult weight's going to be. So for a doe, you're looking at, a New Zealand doe, at least 6 months old and 8 pounds roughly in body weight before you can breed her. So if you get them too young at this point in time, it's going to be next year before you can breed them. But if you get them too old, then you're going to have an older rabbit. They're usually good for 5 or 6 years. I mean, you can get 5 or 6 years of breeding out of them. So it's not really that big a deal to get an older one. It's just, I don't know. There's give and take to each one. It's hard for me to say. Just depends on how fast you want to have baby rabbits. If you want to be breeding them this fall, I would look at getting some older ones that are breeders. You can always change them out for new ones later on. Chester Hickman says, good evening to everyone. Good evening to you. Let's see. Jesse says, my Shire Farm guarantees they will arrive healthy through USPS. Yeah, I didn't know he was selling breeder sets right now. I didn't know he was selling live birds. Chester wants to know how the baby bunnies doing. They're doing fine. Nothing really exciting going on there. They're, like I said, they're still growing out a little bit slow. They're on the smaller side right now, but they're doing fine. Verna says, I would say to marine veal anytime after they are weaned. That's not a bad idea. S.O. Swanson says, correct, Michigan is too cold for BSF to overwinter. You have to buy every spring. I don't know how expensive they were, but they may be worth it. I mean, I'll tell you what, they do a fantastic job. And Verna says, getting them young gives you and them time to bond, though you want to wait a few months before they are breeding age. That's true. I mean, it's not absolutely necessary that you do bond with them. I mean, I never had a rabbit that was that hard to handle. But if you do really want to bond with them, then yeah, getting them a little bit younger. I tend to not worry about that too much. If I have a crazy rabbit, I just, like I said, put some sleeves on and maybe even some gloves if I'm worried about them kicking and scratching too much, and just go in and get them. It's just what I do. And usually none of them have been that crazy. It's never been that big of a deal. Rabbit Homesteading says, I have seen black soldier fly in Kalamazoo County, Michigan. One time I had a crawfish boil and threw everything left in the coffee can and forgot about it and filled it up with spent coffee grounds. Millions, LOL. Huh. In a coffee can? Millions of them in a coffee can? I can't imagine millions would fit, but who knows? So Yusuf says, I'm moving to an apartment, so I don't know if I should buy one or not. Oh, yeah, that may be a little tricky, huh? S.O. Swanson says to Freezer, if you aren't going to be using it, you should save your money. Otherwise, it'll just be a table in your little apartment. Yeah. Verna says, Chris, I have a handheld bug zapper. It's the shape and the size of a tennis racket. I've seen those before. Let's see. Jacob Wolf says, New Zealand's are high-strung and hyper, but grow fast. California's are more docile and make good pets and aren't as hyper. That's kind of been, I mean, my experience with New Zealand's is that usually, I mean, if you have any problems with them being high-strung and hyper, it's usually the does. The bucks are usually pretty mellow. They're easy to handle. I don't have any problems with the bucks usually. But I do occasionally get a doe that's a little bit crazy, a little bit high-strung, like you said. In the New Zealand's, that's not that uncommon. And the Californias do tend to be a little bit mellower. So do the silver foxes. That's one of the things I like about the silver foxes is that they tend to be pretty easy to deal with, pretty mellow. Jacob Wolf says, Chris, I made it. I had a very important unintended nap, LOL. Well, hey, we're glad you're here. How much time we got left here? We got 30 minutes. We're good. Bernice says, I agree, Jacob, but if they get a mixture of both, then it's great. Yeah, I like to have purebred rabbits if I can get them for my breeders, but crossbreeding a New Zealand with a California is a really good combination. It produces some really great fast-growing offspring that are just really hardy. I don't like to use those for a breeder, but just to produce them for meat production, that's a fantastic combination. Jacob says Californians don't grow quite as fast. They typically take a week longer than my New Zealand's. Well, yeah, a week though. What's that? That's not that big of a deal. Gun Clinging Palin says, hey, Chris, made it. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Jacob Wolf says, yes, you can cross them and get great results. I prefer the New Zealand bucks with the California does. The does are also great moms in my experience. Yeah, that would be the way I would do it as well. Because, again, the New Zealand does can be a little bit crazy sometimes. And I think it's a little bit, the New Zealand bucks are usually pretty mellow. Big Ross says, which one do you prefer to eat, rabbit or quail? Oh, boy, I don't know. Sometimes I like quail better. It's got a little more flavor to it, I think. Sometimes I like the rabbit better. It goes a little further. You can kind of mix it in with just any kind of chicken dish and just it comes across as chicken. It's like white meat chicken. So, anything like that. It depends on what I'm making. But, yeah, it's hard for me to say one versus the other. Marineville says, thank you, Chris. That's good to know. I'll be on the lookout for welder sleeves. Yeah, I bought some at Harbor Freight. They weren't terribly expensive, $15 maybe, something like that. Leather, I believe, suede kind of. Pretty thick, heavy duty. Desert Homestead says, all week long, I come up with questions to ask you, and then Thursday comes and my brain goes on vacation. Hey, I know how that goes. Keep a little notebook with you. You can write them down and bring them with you. But yeah, I have those problems too. Chester Hickman says, I'm looking at adding cinnamon rabbits and New Zealand Reds to my breeding stock. Anyone have experience with either of these two breeds? I had a New Zealand Red at one time, and she was crazy. I mean, just insane. I couldn't hardly stick your hand in there. She'd take a glove off your hand. I mean, I got rid of her. She was way too much to handle. She was the worst rabbit I ever had. But that's the only one I've ever had. So who knows? I mean, it could have been just that rabbit. I don't know. Zora says, hand feed my quail black soldier fly larvae as a treat so they are friendly. The little beasts were so excited this morning that they drew blood in a couple of places on my arm. Surprised me. Yeah, that surprised me too. I've never had one draw blood. I've had them peck at my hands and stuff before. Quail are pretty mellow. I mean, they don't really necessarily want me to handle, but they don't get scared of me coming around. I bring the food out to them. They're just right there waiting to be fed. They don't run from me. They don't necessarily come right up to me, but it doesn't bother them that I'm around. Buck Reynolds says, don't use half breed for breeders. Cross two full blood or different breed. Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. The mixed breeds are usually not the best breeders. Usually your purebreds are, but if you can breed two different breeds, like a crossbreed them together, then you get really good results for meat production. Not to use as future breeders, just the meat runs, that you're going to be using as meat rabbits. It's a great way to do it. Rabbit Homestead says, okay, maybe not millions, but hundreds probably, LOL. Yeah, that sounds more like it, but I get what you're saying. Jacob Wolf says, I've never had New Zealand Reds, but I do have New Zealand Blues. I like the Blues because they're calmer and more friendly, but I also found out they're not quite as heat tolerant as my New Zealand White. Interesting. Andy Rabbit says only 71 out of 90 eggs went into lockdown, so only 19 were not good. Well, that's not terrible. That could be a lot worse. Verna's leaving, it looks like. Says blessings, got to go. Well, thanks for joining tonight, Verna. You have a good night. Oops. And Maureen says, thanks, everyone. This has made my choice much easier. Well, good. I'm glad you got what you needed out of it. I still got a fruit fly bugging me. Andy Rabbit says, okay, got the GQF turned on and getting up to heat. Good luck with your hatch. Hopefully it goes well. Let's see. I think we got to the end of the chat here for a minute, so we'll give it a second to catch up to me. Because, again, I don't ever have anything planned out to talk about, so I got to find a way to fill the dead air when it comes up, right? So, crazy things happened this week, right? Ozzy Osbourne died. Hulk Hogan died. What's his name from the Cosby Show? I can't remember his name. He died this week. And then that blues player. Can't remember his name either. But yeah, lots of them. Andy Rabbit says, I don't mean only 71. Like, that was bad. I mistyped. I got what you meant. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Doina says, any chance you'll get into raising goats? Probably not. I thought about it, but I need some pretty good fencing. The city, the goats are one of those things that kind of draws attention. People, all you need is for your goat to get out one time, eat the neighbor's bushes, and then you're busted. And the animal control comes by. And if they come by, they're going to probably crack down on me for all kinds of things. So probably not, but who knows? Maybe I will someday. Jacob Wolf says, yeah, Hulk was definitely a surprise. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that one at all. Not that I was necessarily expecting the others either, but yeah, it did catch me by surprise. I guess it was cardiac arrest. Bev Smith says, any suggestions on where to buy foam egg mailers? I've never bought any before, but let's see. It looks like, oh my goodness. There's some on Etsy, but they're expensive. Looks like Walmart has some you can buy. Egg carton, 6 pieces, quail egg holder, foam slots, quail eggs holder tray, refrigerator, quail egg storage container. I'm just trying to stuff the keywords in there, I guess. Looks like maybe eBay. There's some on for sale on eBay. 5 set for $20. So I don't know where your best place to get them is going to be. Those look kind of pricey. I don't know. Maybe somebody else has got an idea. Rabbit Homesteading says Ozzy and Hulk, rest in peace. Yep. Andy Rabbit says to Bev, ask HP at Gopher Ridge Farm. There you go. Jacob Wolf says, I think Ozzy felt like his time was complete after his farewell performance. He had done everything he wanted to do and was content and ready to go. Yeah, I wasn't terribly surprised about that. I'd heard him say, he may die on stage. He knew it was coming, I guess. But Hulk Hogan, that one kind of caught me off guard. Buck Reynolds says, and if you raise rabbits commercially, I think it is, a week is a long time. Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, if you raised them commercially, then a week would be a long time. Bev Smith says, my neighbor's herd of goats have ended up in my backyard way too many times, and my dogs weren't so interested in their droppings. I'd let them finish clearing the land for me. Yeah. In my experience, goats are not the best as at clearing up like just grass. They don't really eat grass much, but they will tear up like any kind of woody underbrush, like small trees, shrub, that kind of stuff. They'll just tear that stuff up. I need some to clear out some of my fence or my tree line back there. Andy Rabbit says, I liked Ozzy. Well, me too. And I liked Hulk Hogan when I was a kid. I mean, I grew up, I was born in 74, so I grew up in the 80s when he was big and watched all that wrestling. There wasn't a whole lot to do when I was a kid, so wrestling was a big deal to me then. But I haven't followed him for years. David Lister says, we have the room for goats, but I don't like their vocabulary. Yeah. Yeah, there was a funny video. Matt Walsh, if you guys know who Matt Walsh is, he did a video on his wife bought a goat, and it's just hilarious to watch. I'll have to see if I can find it for you guys at some point. Jacob Wolf says, my grandpa had Parkinson's disease from when I was a child until he died 9 years ago. I have seen it firsthand and watched the trembles and the shakes, and they lose their control of their body. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. I'm sorry you had to go through that. It's really rough watching somebody go through it, for sure. Zora says, gave the neighbor 50 Coturnix eggs to hatch, and he was bummed out that 25 lockdown. He's using the little giant still air in a garage that goes over 100 degrees. I told him that was that was really good. Yeah, that actually is pretty good for not having a very temperature stable environment. That's another thing that can affect your hatches pretty significantly. You don't want to set your incubator over a heating or air conditioning vent, or put it in a window where the sun's going to shine through on it during the day. That can heat it up and cool it down. I mean, it's really hard for any incubator to try to stabilize temperature in one of those where the temperature is constantly fluctuating up and down. Jacob says, and slowly wither away. It's a sad sight and something I'll never forget. Yeah, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It is sad for sure. Yusuf says, the only way I know Ozzy is he bit off a bat's head. Yeah, well, that's the story, isn't it? I don't think he actually did, though. Did he? Let me do a search. I've heard a couple of different stories about that, right? Let me see what it says. Yeah. So what I heard, so that's the story that I heard too, is that he did actually do that. I couldn't remember if it was an actual thing. Somebody threw one on stage. He thought it was a toy. He thought it was a fake thing. So he picked it up and it actually was a lie. It was actually a real bat. But yeah, that's a crazy thing. Desert Homestead says, I have 16 chickens and 8 quail heads. I've been getting 5 chicken eggs and 6 quail eggs every day. Chickens are 2 to 3 year old, quail 12 weeks. feed to egg production is wild with quail and meat too. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Desert Homestead says Hulk just got baptized a few months ago. God is good. God is good. Absolutely. I didn't know he just got baptized. Hopefully it was a sincere thing and he is way better off then. Andy Rabbit says, I used to watch Hulk when I was a kid too. I still listen to Ozzy too. Yeah, I mean, I was never a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan. There's a couple songs I like. I know him, from his music, but I'm never a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan, but, still sad to see him go. Rabbit Homesteading says, my great uncle had Parkinson's when he was a kid and lived for decades and lived quite old. I don't think it was Parkinson's. He had it over 20, maybe 30 years. And Ozzy, I think, since 2019. Interesting. May have been misdiagnosed. Bev Smith says, yep, he thought it was a rubber bat, so he says. Yeah, maybe. Who knows? There's So and Tears here. Says, hello, everybody from Douglas County, Oregon. Hope everybody's doing well. We are here. Well, I am. Hopefully you are too. Rabbit Homesteading said he did bite a bat's head, but thought it was a fake bat. Had to do a rabies shot. Yeah, I've heard that too. Andy Rabbit says Dawn had to call Little Giant a day or two ago, and they told her that room temp at 77 degrees was too high, and that 72 is the highest you should do. I don't know if that's true or not. I've incubated in higher temperature than that. As long as it's fairly stable, it tends to be fine. Jacob Wolf says, yeah, so I can only imagine what Ozzy went through with how fast his Parkinson's disease progressed so rapidly. I do find it ironic that Ozzy lived longer than Richard Simmons. Yeah, well, there's a lot of people that live longer than Richard Simmons, right? I mean, Keith Richards, look at him. And, I've seen those memes, though. People like, I'm really going to start thinking this healthy living thing. I mean, Ozzy outlived Richard Simmons, so Keith Richards. So, I mean, there's a bunch of people, right? Rabbit Homestead says, I heard the baptized thing too on Hulk Hogan. I didn't know about that. That's good news. Bev Smith says, I was a huge Sabbath and Ozzy fan in high school. Yeah, I mean, lots of people were where I went to school. I was never really a big Ozzy fan. When I was in high school, I was in high school. I graduated in 1992. So most of the later part of the 80s was when I spent pretty much most of my time in high school. Up into, about half of it, I guess, 88, 89, 90, 91, those years. Music was tough. I mean, the grunge era hadn't really quite hit yet, and it was a lot of pop and stuff like that, boy bands and all that. And I was pretty much listening to Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and, Jethro Tull and a lot of that old 60s music. But never was a huge Black Sabbath fan. Fred Holler says, I don't often listen to Black Sabbath, but when I do, so do my neighbors, LOL. Jacob Wolf says, they were both born the same year, but the lifestyles were completely and drastically different. Yep, indeed. Andy Rabbit says, Killer of Giants was the song I would listen to every morning on my walk to school. I don't know that song. Let's see. Yusuf wants to know from Katrina, did you move to Oregon? Oh, looks like. So and Tara says, I'm up on my rabbits vaccines. Had to get them when I helped out with some bat research. Oh, rabies vaccines, not rabbit vaccines. I was curious. I was like, what are you vaccinating your rabbits for? I get it now. You're up to date on vaccines because you were doing some bat research. Interesting. Bev Smith says, geez, I've never been able to hatch in Florida with those recommendations. Oh, never be able to. Yeah, if you said room temperature over 72, yeah, no kidding. I don't keep my house over 72, or my house under 72 degrees in the summertime. Let's see what temperature does it say it's in here right now. I can look at an app and find out, but I don't know where it is. Well, we're not going to worry about it. I think it's probably about 74 in here right now. Jacob Wolf says, did you work out to Richard Simmons back in the day, Chris? LOL. No, I never did work out to Richard Simmons. In fact, I'm not much You can't tell I'm not much for working out. Just not my deal. But no, never worked out to Richard Simmons. So and Tara says to Freezer, yep, last year I'm on just shy of 70 acres in southern Oregon now. Boy, 70 acres would be nice, wouldn't it? Gunclingin Palin says, did you listen to redneck music? Well, I don't know. I guess that was what you depends on what you call redneck music. I mean, I was a big Leonard Skinner fan. I guess that's kind of redneck, right? Kansas, some of those bands I liked. Zara says, I put short piece of copper pipe in 5-gallon water. Seems to keep water clear. Interesting. Keeps the algae from growing, huh? Yeah, I don't have too many problems with it. I mean, it does. I do end up getting algae growth, but usually I can go through the summer before I have to worry about really cleaning it out. The watering system for the quail, that is. Yusef says, I'm looking at the whole USA map and thinking of where to move in the next year or two to settle. Well, there's lots of choices, aren't there? It depends on what you like. Andy Rabbit says, Richard Simmons, LOL. My mom was a big fan. Yusef says, redneck music with a smile. Yeah, I guess. Keanu says, no, redneck is George Strait, Alan Jackson, George Jones, Randy Travis, etc. No, I'm not a country music fan at all. Aside from Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, I like those guys, but I don't really consider that country. Jacob says, my grandma was a big Richard Simmons fan. She says his workouts were so spunky and fun, LOL. Interesting. So and Tara says to Freezer, make sure you look at all seasons and visit the region before you go, at least once before you go. That's probably good advice. Yusuf says, yeah, Chris, lots of options, difficult to choose with so many options. It is. I'd be partial to, the southern states. I'm partial to Missouri. I like Missouri. It's where I grew up. It's home. I like the Ozarks, but I'm kind of biased. So, I would be partial though to the more southern states. I kind of like that area, part of the country as far as living in goes. But then again, we probably have different. I'm a conservative Christian guy, so that's why I like those areas. But who knows? There's lots of places out there. Look around, see what you like, and go from there. Andy Rabbit says, I must be a redneck. I like every one of them. David Lister says, Chris, no disco? No, I was never a big disco fan either. Andy Rabbit says to flip a coin, Yusuf. I don't know if flipping a coin's the best idea either. So and Tierra says, humidity? No, thank you. Yeah, you get used to it. It's not that bad. Freight Holler says, do all your quail lay eggs every day, or is it common for one or two to miss every once in a while? No, it's pretty common. I mean, they go in spurts where they're pretty regularly laying, and then get them to where they just miss a couple a day or two, and it's pretty common. Keone says, I love Tennessee, grew up in Texas and Hawaii. Yeah, I lived in Texas for about 8 years. It was pretty nice. Wasn't bad at all. I've been to Tennessee, but I didn't spend much time there, so I can't really say. Andy Rabbit says, flip a coin wherever it goes on the land, or wherever it lands on the map you go. I don't know if that's the best advice, honestly. Just my opinion. Jacob Wolf says, Chris, have you ever smoked or barbecued quail? Any recipes? I've never smoked quail. I don't know. My concern would be that it would dry out pretty bad. They're pretty small. They don't take long to cook, so I don't know that it's worth smoking. Maybe somebody else has done it. I've smoked rabbit before, and it's pretty good. I just smoked it, and we threw it. We did a whole bunch at one time. Threw them in vacuum seal bags with some butter and some garlic and some onion, and I can't remember exactly what else, a little salt and pepper or whatever, and sealed that up, and then stuck them in the freezer. And whenever you get them out to cook them, you just basically just put the whole bag in a pot of hot water until it's heated through and melts all that butter and stuff, and it worked out pretty well. But I've never done it with quail. Yusuf says to Andy Rabbit, I don't gamble like that. Yeah, I think that's probably good. Yusuf says, Keone is your favorite Tennessee out of all three? Probably. Zora says, move to South Texas, 101 degrees and only 85% humidity today. No idea what real feel is. Yeah. Yeah, Texas is hot. I mean, it's not where I lived in Texas. I was in East Texas in Nacogdoches, about halfway between Dallas and Houston. So, and it was, I mean, it didn't get really much hotter than it did here. It wasn't really that much different. It just stayed hot longer. So summer lasted longer than it does here. They didn't have much of a winter. It got cold for like January, February, and then you're back into summer again. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal. Bev Smith says, Florida is horrible. Don't move here, LOL. Yeah, there's some good things about Florida, but yeah, I don't think I'd want to live in Florida. So the thing I like about living here is that we get all 4 seasons. So by the time summer's over, I'm looking forward to fall. Fall's a great time of the year around here. And then, wintertime comes, and I'm really kind of looking forward to having some snow and stuff like that. By the time winter's wrapping up, I am ready for spring and summer again, and it just makes you appreciate all that stuff, I like having all 4 seasons. Keone says, love Hawaii, not affordable. Yeah, I can believe that. Andy Rabbit says, Yusuf, here's some advice. Don't move far from your parents or mom. In years to come, you will want to be closer. That's pretty good advice. G. Michael Jr. says, good evening, all. Question, how are your rabbits faring with the summer heat? So far, they're all doing well. I've got the Tamucks. They're supposed to be a heat-tolerant rabbit. They seem to be. I mean, but then again, my silver foxes don't really seem to be having too many troubles with it either. So I don't know if there's really anything. I mean, they're much more heat-tolerant. It's hard to say. But they're all doing okay. I'm not having any issues with any of them. Let's see. Jacob Wolf says, my rabbits are hanging in there with their fans and frozen water bottles. Yeah, I don't do any of that. I mean, they're in the shade. Their direct sun never hits their hutch that they're in, the shed, the rabbit shed kind of thing I've got. But I don't do any fans or frozen water bottles or anything like that. They're all just doing just fine. Yusuf says to Andy Rabbit, she might move with me. Nothing is really keeping us in one spot. And if she doesn't, I'll visit very often. Yeah, that is the hard part, though. If you move too far away, you think you'll visit very often, but it's harder than it's not as easy as it sounds to do that. And so, and Tara says that her rabbits are doing great. It's less hot here than your old place. Keone says to G. Michael, it's rough. Lost a lot more new kits despite working hard to keep cool. Even brought them into the basement. Oh, that's tough. Jacob Wolf says 91 today in Ohio with a heat advisory with heat index of 100 degrees. Yeah, we were a little hotter than that today, but I don't know. I mean, let me look. We'll see if I can find and tell you what the temperature is outside right now because the sun's starting to go down. I mean, it's pretty late. Let me find my app that shows me my outside temperature right now. Where is it? I don't remember. Oh, I know where it is. It's over in here. Let's find out. There we go. See if I'll probably have to log in to get it, but I don't really want to do that. Come on, go away. Oh, that's the wrong app anyway. Dang it. Eventually I'll get to it. There we go. There's the one. It's set in Celsius. Oh my goodness, how do I change it? Anyway, it says right now, let's see. Outside. I'm not logged in. We'll figure it out later. I'll just do the temperature. Current temp right now is 90 degrees. That's what it says. I bet it's a little warmer than that, actually. Andy Rabbit says, I don't know what temps are. I don't need to look to know it's sweating hot. Yeah, no kidding. It's hot. We're at 60% humidity, 90 degrees. Brian Allen says, roll tide, huh? Is that, you're going to hate me for this probably. Is that Alabama, I think? I can't remember. Desert Homestead says, all this Zeppelin and Aussie talk, I thought you were going to recommend Zigzag for smoking quail. Just kidding, LOL. Yeah, that's funny, though. Yusuf says, I was looking at Florida because of the weather, and that's about it. I'll take your advice. Florida's pretty redneck, but the weather in Florida, I mean, the problem with Florida is it's humid. I mean, incredibly humid. You don't know humidity until you've been to Miami in the summer. I mean, you just step off the plane and you can't breathe. The air is so thick. It's a nice place to visit, but yeah, I don't think I'd want to live there. So Terra says to G. Michael Jr., real shade from leaves is far better than a tarp or building. There are solar fans which can help. Make sure they have water all the time. You can also put a frozen ice bottle in with them. Was there a question I missed, maybe? Or you're just responding to how they're doing with the heat? Yeah, you're right. Shade from like trees and stuff like that, significantly better than just trying to shade them with a tarp or something. Zohar says, time's up. Oh, is it? Oh, my goodness. I wasn't even paying attention. Look at that. And we got a whole bunch of stuff in here. Keone says, Tennessee has the Four Seasons as well and has the nicest people. Well, people around here are pretty nice, too. Freezer says, I want a shorter winter than Massachusetts or no winter. Yeah, I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to live in Massachusetts either for multiple reasons. But the weather is one of them. All right, guys, I got to wrap this one up. Good to see y'all. Hopefully everybody has a good evening. We should be back next week. Don't see any reason at this point why I won't be. And as always, God bless. We'll see you later.